In 1969, a film was released that would not only redefine the Western genre, but also serve as a passing of the torch between the old Hollywood and the new. That film was True Grit, directed by Henry Hathaway. It told the gritty, dusty, and poignant story of a young girl seeking justice for her father's murder. Enlisting the help of a washed-up, one-eyed U.S. Marshal, it was a massive commercial success, a critical darling and a cultural phenomenon that bridged the gap between the classic heroism of the past and the gritty realism of the emerging cinematic era. But when the cameras stopped rolling and the dust settled on the locations in Colorado and California, the actors who breathed life into these iconic characters returned to their own realities. Realities often more dramatic, tragic, and complex than the script they had just performed decades have passed since Rooster Cogburn first charged across that meadow, reins in his teeth. Time has been both a generous benefactor and a cruel thief to the cast of True Grit. Some found redemption. Some found unparalleled fame, while others faced a quiet descent into obscurity and heartbreak. Today we peel back the curtain to explore the poignant, triumphant, and sometimes devastating true stories of the legends behind this cinematic masterpiece. Dennis Hopper as Moon. In the rugged landscape of True Grit, Dennis Hopper appeared as Moon, a young, wild-eyed bandit whose desperation and intensity left a searing mark on the film despite sharing the screen with established titans. Born on May 17, 1936, in Dodge City, Kansas, Hopper was 33 years old when he took on this role. With his rebellious gaze and an aura that screamed of a free spirit, he was not just playing a bandit. He was channeling the very essence of the counterculture movement that was sweeping across America. He was the bridge between the classic Western and the chaotic energy of the late 60s, a symbol of the new Hollywood that was ready to smash every mold the industry had built. Following his stint in True Grit, Hopper's career exploded in a way that few could have predicted. He directed and starred in Easy Rider, a film that became the anthem of a generation, earning him immense fortune and status. However, his life was far from a smooth ride to the top. Hopper was a man of voracious appetites and profound artistic sensibilities, a photographer, a painter, and a director. But he was also a soul tormented by his own demons. His personal life played out like a tragic, high-stakes drama. He cycled through 5 marriages, leaving a trail of broken hearts and scandalous headlines in his wake. His union with Michelle Phillips of the Mamas, Papas, is legendary in Hollywood lore for lasting a mere tumultuous 8 days. The years following his initial success were marked by a self-imposed exile to New Mexico, where he lived in a haze of substance abuse and erratic behavior close to the very cemetery where he would one day rest. Yet Hopper was a phoenix. Just when the industry had written him off as a casualty of the 60s, he staged one of the greatest comebacks in cinema history. In 1986, he terrified audiences as the gas-inhaling psychopath Frank Booth in Blue Velvet and broke their hearts as the alcoholic assistant coach in Hoosiers, proving that his talent was untouched by the chaos of his lifestyle. He regained his glory, becoming a revered elder statesman of cool, amassing a fortune estimated at $40 million through his diverse artistic endeavors. However, the fire that fueled his genius also burned away his physical well-being. His freewheeling lifestyle eventually caught up with him, leading to severe health struggles and bitter legal battles that marred his final days. In a heartbreaking turn of events, even as he lay dying, he was embroiled in a fierce public divorce battle with his last wife, Victoria Duffy. The final act of this rebel's life came on May 29, 2011. After months of a grueling, agonizing battle with prostate cancer that had metastasized to his bones. Dennis Hopper passed away at his home in Venice, Los Angeles at the age of 74. He was returned to the earth in Ranchos de Taos, New Mexico, the place that had sheltered him during his wildest years, leaving behind a legacy of brilliance and a portrait of a soul that was eternally restless. John Wayne as Rooster Cogburn. Marion Robert Morrison, known to the world as John Wayne, was the undeniable heartbeat of True Grit. Born on May 26, 1907, in Winterset, Iowa. The Duke was 62 years old when he donned the eye patch to play the drunken, cantankerous, yet heroic U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn. For decades, Wayne had been the symbol of American masculinity. But it was this role, a caricature of his own tough guy image played with grit and self-deprecating humor, that finally won him the Academy Award for Best Actor. With his rugged voice and imposing physique, he was etched into the public consciousness not just as an actor, but as an immutable monument of Hollywood. Wayne's career was a marathon of success that kept him at the top of the box office for 3 decades. He amassed a net worth of approximately $50 million, a staggering sum for the time, thanks to his wise real estate investments and tireless work ethic. Yet the man behind the legend was far more vulnerable than the heroes he portrayed. His love life was as turbulent as any gunfight. He married 3 times and fathered 7 children. But happiness was often elusive. His first marriage to Josephine Saenz crumbled under the weight of his demanding schedule. He was a man married to his career, leaving little room for family. His second marriage to Esperanza Bauer was a volatile disaster rife, with arguments and violence culminating in a terrifying incident where she fired a gun at him in a drunken rage. It was only with his third wife, Pilar Palete, that Wayne found some semblance of stability, though even she could not protect him from the physical toll of his choices. Wayne was a man of excess, particularly with his smoking habit, which reached up to 5 packs a day. This addiction ravaged his body. He underwent surgery to remove a lung in 1964, a brush with death that he faced with characteristic stoicism, continuing to work in films like The Shootist even as his body began to fail. In his final years, he faced criticism for his conservatives, politics becoming a polarizing figure in a changing America, yet he remained a beloved icon to millions. But the toughest cowboy in Hollywood could not outdraw his final enemy. After a long, agonizing battle with stomach cancer, John Wayne breathed his last at UCLA Medical Center on June 11, 1979, at the age of 72. He was buried at Pacific View Memorial Park in California, where his gravestone bears a motto that encapsulates his enduring spirit: "Tomorrow is the most important day in life." He left behind a legacy that carries both the blinding glory of his stardom and the tragic shadow of a man who gave everything to the screen. Glenn Campbell as LaBeouf. Glenn Travis Campbell, born on April 22, 1936 in humble beginnings in Arkansas, brought a fresh, youthful energy to the cast of True Grit. At 33, the country music superstar stepped out of his comfort zone to portray Texas Ranger LaBeouf. While his acting was sometimes overshadowed by Wayne, Campbell's portrayal of the proud, somewhat arrogant yet determined lawman was crucial to the film's dynamic. It earned him a Golden Globe nomination and proved that his charisma translated from the concert stage to the silver screen. Outside of acting, Campbell's career was nothing short of legendary. He was a guitar virtuoso and a hit-making machine. Songs like Gentle on My Mind, Wichita Lineman, and the anthem Rhinestone Cowboy became the soundtrack of an era. He amassed a fortune of approximately $30 million, rising from poverty, where he had been forced to leave school early to help his family, to becoming a global icon. Music was his escape, his passion, and his golden ticket. But the Rhinestone Cowboy glitter hid deep, festering wounds. Campbell's life was a dichotomy of dazzling public glory and dark private pain. Behind the sweet melodic voice was a man constantly wrestling with his demons. He struggled severely with addictions to alcohol and cocaine, substances he used to cope with the pressures of fame and his own insecurities. These self-destructive habits destroyed his personal life, leading to 3 broken marriages and a highly publicized, tumultuous relationship with Tanya Tucker. For years, Campbell seemed to be spiraling a star, burning out in the tabloids. It was only later in life, after marrying his 4th wife, Kim Woolen, that Campbell found the peace and stability he had desperately sought. He cleaned up his life and embraced his faith. However, fate had one final cruel twist in store. The man who had memorized thousands of lyrics and melodies began to lose himself. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, a condition he faced with remarkable bravery, even launching a farewell tour to say goodbye to his fans while he still could. The long goodbye eventually came to an end. On August 8, 2017, Glenn Campbell passed away at the age of 81. He was buried in the family cemetery in Billstown, Arkansas, returning to the soil where his childhood dreams were born. He left the world as a restless wanderer who had finally found his way home, leaving behind an immortal musical legacy, but also the poignant story of a star who had to fight through darkness to find the light. Jeremy Slate as Emmett Quincy. Jeremy Slate, born Robert Bullard, Peerham on February 17, 1926, was 43 years old when he took on the role of Emmett Quincy in True Grit. Quincy was a knife-wielding, treacherous outlaw, and Slate played him with a sharp, ruthless intensity that made the character unforgettable. With his handsome but hard-edged features, Slate was perfectly cast as the cunning gunslinger, a role that added a layer of visceral danger to the film's second act. Slate's life was a series of dramatic twists worthy of a movie script itself. He was a Navy veteran who fought in World War II, bringing a real-world toughness to his roles. Before finding fame, he worked in public relations and even wrote country music. He eventually found success in television, starring in the series The Aquanauts and becoming a familiar face in biker movies and westerns. He amassed a net worth of approximately $2 million earned through a prolific career in TV and film, but the rugged exterior hid a man who was deeply entangled in loneliness and personal instability. His love life was fraught with difficulty. His first marriage collapsed due to his consuming addiction to alcohol and his obsession with his work. He later entered a high-profile relationship with archaeologist Sally Binford, but that too ended in scandal and disappointment. Slate often played characters with a dark side: cowboys, gangsters, bikers, and in many ways, these roles reflected the turmoil within his own soul, struggled to find a lasting connection, leaving him isolated as the years went by. In his later years, he finally found a semblance of peace, writing extensively and reflecting on his journey. However, his physical health began to fail him. On November 19, 2006, Jeremy Slate passed away in Los Angeles at the age of 80, following complications from surgery for esophageal cancer. He died carrying the memories of a life lived at full throttle, an artist who dared to live on the edge, leaving behind a legacy of gritty performances and a personal story of a man who fought hard for his place in the world. Alfred Ryder as Gowdy. Alfred Ryder, born Alfred Jacob Korn on January 5, 1916, was 53 years old when he appeared as the defense attorney Gowdy in True Grit. Though his role was confined to the courtroom scenes, Ryder made a distinct impression. With a serious demeanor, sharp delivery, and an air of intellectual superiority, he convincingly portrayed the lawyer who grills Rooster Cogburn, highlighting the conflict between the civilized law and the untamed West. Ryder's life was in many ways a tragedy of the stage. He was a classically trained actor who harbored dreams of becoming the greatest Hamlet of his generation. He was deeply respected in theatrical circles and was also a noted director. However, he achieved mainstream recognition primarily through television guest spots, including Star Trek, rather than the high art he aspired to. One major television failure earlier in his career had deeply affected his confidence, causing him to abandon his pursuit of superstardom and settle for character roles. His personal life was equally sorrowful. He was married to the legendary actress Kim Stanley, a union that produced a child but ended in a painful divorce. The separation left Ryder with deep emotional wounds and a strained relationship with his daughter. He was a sensitive soul, and the brutality of the entertainment business combined with his own perfectionism was mentally draining his net worth. At the time of his death was estimated at $15 million, a modest accumulation for a man of his talent. In his final years, Ryder retreated from the spotlight. He lived quietly with his sister actress Olive Deering, finding solace in family after a lifetime of professional striving and romantic heartbreak. He grappled with the grief of being a nearly great man, an artist of immense potential who never quite found the vehicle to carry him to the pantheon of legends. Alfred Ryder passed away on April 16, 1995, at the age of 79 at the Actors Fund Nursing Home in New Jersey after a battle with liver cancer. Died in a place dedicated to taking care of those who gave their lives to the art of poignant, and for a man who lived and breathed the theater but found his final rest away from the applause. Edith Atwater as Mrs. Floyd. Edith Atwater, born on April 22, 1911, brought a touch of matriarchal strength to True Grit at the age of 58. As Mrs. Floyd, the landlady, she represented the civilized world that Mattie Ross was leaving behind. It was a small role, but Atwater imbued it with a sense of grace, responsibility, and perseverance that reflected the harsh realities of women in the Old West. She was the grounding force, a reminder of the society that existed on the edge of the wilderness. Atwater was a true dame of the stage and screen. Her career spanned more than 50 years, ranging from The Body Snatcher in 1945 to Hitchcock's Family Plot in 1976. She was a respected figure in the acting community, so much so that a caricature of her hangs in Sardis, the famous New York restaurant honoring stage legends. Her net worth was estimated at around $1 million, earned through a lifetime of dedication to the craft. However, beneath the placid and dignified exterior lay a heart that had known deep loneliness. Her romantic life was marked by broken dreams. She was briefly married to actor Hugh Marlowe, but the union ended in divorce after only a few years. She eventually found a long-term partner in actor Kent Smith, who remained with her for the rest of her life, but the couple had no children. Atwater once admitted to feeling a profound sense of isolation even when surrounded by the spotlight. She was a woman who gave her life to her characters, often at the expense of her own personal fulfillment. In her final years, cancer began to ravage her body, stripping away her physical strength, but never her spirit. She faced her illness with the same resilience she had shown throughout her career, but the battle was overwhelming. On March 14, 1986, Edith Atwater breathed her last at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles at the age of 74. She died as she had lived, with dignity, leaving behind a legacy of strong female characters and the silent, poignant story of a fragile soul who found her greatest strength in the art of pretending. Jeff Corey as Tom Chaney. Jeff Corey, born Arthur Zwirling on August 10, 1914, was 55 years old when he embodied the face of cowardice and villainy as Tom Chaney in True Grit. Chaney was the catalyst for the entire film, the man who murdered Mattie Ross' father, and Corey played him with a chilling mix of brutality, ruthlessness, and pathetic calculation. It was a performance that added immense dramatic weight to the Western, proving that a villain didn't need to be strong to be dangerous. Corey's real life, however, was a drama far more complex than any Western. He was a man of immense integrity whose career was nearly destroyed by the political paranoia of his time. A talented stage actor with a promising future, Corey was abruptly blacklisted in 1951. He was summoned before the House Un-American Activities Committee and refused to name names. Refusing to betray his friends to save his career, the punishment was swift. He was banned from Hollywood, losing decades of prime acting years and plunging his family into financial crisis. But Jeff Corey was not a man to be defeated. During those dark years of rejection, he reinvented himself as one of the most influential acting teachers in Los Angeles. He turned his garage into a studio and inspired a generation of future legends, including James Dean, Jack Nicholson, and Jane Fonda. The blacklist finally crumbled in the 1960s. Corey returned to the screen with a vengeance and an iron will. He delivered unforgettable performances in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Little Big Man, proving that talent could not be silenced by politics. Throughout these turbulent times, his personal life remained his anchor. He was married to his wife, Hope, for 64 years, a rarity in Hollywood. Together, they raised 2 children and weathered the storms of financial ruin and social ostracization. His net worth at the end of his life was estimated at $3 million, a modest sum that represented a lifetime of hard, honest work. The final curtain fell for this resilient survivor on August 16, 2002. Jeff Corey passed away at the age of 88 due to complications from a fall. He was buried in California, closing a chapter on a life that was a beautiful tragedy. where courage triumphed over fear. He is remembered not just as the villain Tom Chaney, but as a teacher and a man of principle who stood tall when Hollywood tried to force him to his knees. James Westerfield as Judge Parker. James, a Westerfield born on March 22, 1913, brought a sense of gravitas and formidable authority to the role of Judge Parker in True Grit. At 56 years old, he portrayed the hanging judge with a stern but fair demeanor, grounding the film's wilder elements in the harsh reality of frontier justice. Westerfield was a veteran of the stage and screen, a man whose imposing physical presence and deep voice made him a natural fit for roles of power, from police officers to sheriffs to judges. Westerfield's career was a testament to stability and consistency. He appeared in acclaimed films such as On the Waterfront, 1954, and The Sons of Katie, Elder, 1965, earning a reputation as a reliable and talented character actor. By the end of his career, he had amassed a net worth of around $2 million, the result of decades of steady work. To the public, he was the image of the solid, unwavering guardian of the law. However, the man behind the gavel struggled with a life that was far less orderly than the courtrooms he presided over. Westerfield faced significant personal turmoil. His private life was marred by family conflicts and a controversial divorce that strained his relationships with those closest to him. The pressure of maintaining his career while dealing with these emotional fractures weighed heavily on him. Friends and colleagues noted that beneath the dignified exterior lay a heart that was weary from the constant battles, both professional and personal. He never achieved A-list stardom, a reality that often plagues talented character actors who feel their contributions are overlooked. Tragically, he did not live long to enjoy the success of True Grit. Just 2 years after the film's release, on September 20th, 1971, James Westerfield died suddenly of a heart attack at the age of 58. His death rocked the film industry, a sudden end to a career that seemed to have many years left. He was buried in California, leaving behind a legacy of justice on screen, while his own life ended with the unresolved sadness of a man who spent his life judging others but could not find peace for himself. John Doucette as Sheriff. John Arthur Doucette, born on January 21, 1921, was 48 years old when he donned the badge of the sheriff in True Grit. His role was brief but pivotal, establishing the law and order of the town before the characters embarked on their journey into the wilderness, with his tough face resolute, voice and imposing build. Doucette was the archetype of the Western lawman. He didn't just play the sheriff. He looked like he had been born wearing the star. Doucette was one of the most prolific character actors in Hollywood history, with over 280 film and television credits to his name. He appeared in classics like Patton and The Sons of Katie Elder, usually playing authority figures or tough guys. Despite this vast body of work he amassed, a fortune of only around $1 million, a reflection of the era's pay scales for supporting players and the financial demands of his private life. Behind the camera, the tough guy lived a life of immense pressure. He was a devoted family man, married to opera singer Catherine Sambles, and together they raised 8 children. The responsibility of providing for such a large family in the fickle world of show business was a crushing weight. Doucette worked constantly, rarely turning down a role driven by the fear of financial instability. Beneath his stoic exterior, he struggled with depression, a dark shadow that often plagues those who must constantly pretend to be someone else. He often felt forgotten by the industry he served so faithfully, doubting his own worth despite his extensive resume. In his later years, as the roles dried up and his health declined, he retreated into solitude. He battled cancer with the same quiet determination he brought to his sheriff roles, but this was a fight he could not win. On August 16, 1994, John Doucette passed away at the age of 73. He was laid to rest at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City. His life remains a sad fragment of the Hollywood story, a hero on screen who carried the heavy burden of survival in silence, sacrificing everything for his family until the very end. Strother Martin as Colonel G. Stonehill. Strother Douglas Martin, Jr., born on March 26, 1919 in Indiana, was a master of the character role. At 50 years old, he played Colonel G. Stonehill in True Grit, a cunning, fast-talking horse trader who engages in a delightful verbal sparring match with the young Matty Ross. With his distinctive wheezy voice and a flair for satirical humor, Martin turned a supporting role into one of the most entertaining segments of the film. He was the kind of actor who could steal a scene simply by the way he looked at someone. Martin's journey to Hollywood was unconventional. Before he was an actor, he was a standout athlete, a champion swimmer who narrowly missed qualifying for the Olympic team. When World War II ended, he took that discipline and applied it to acting. He spent years in the trenches of the industry, taking on hundreds of small roles, working tirelessly to earn a living. He eventually found his niche playing prairie scum and eccentric authority figures. He is perhaps best immortalized for the line, "What we've got here is failure to communicate," from the 1967 film Cool Hand Luke, a role that cemented his place in cinema history. Despite his on-screen success and a career that spanned 3 decades, Martin's life was defined by the relentless grind of a working actor. He amassed a net worth of approximately $5 million, a respectable sum, but one earned through sheer volume of work. His marriage to Helen Meisels Martin provided him with stability, but the constant pressure to perform and the anxiety of the industry gradually eroded his health. He was known as a perfectionist who worried deeply about his craft, a stress that took a physical toll. Even as he continued to deliver memorable performances in films like The Wild Bunch, he could not escape the shadow of exhaustion. His heart, which had powered him through athletic championships and grueling film shoots, began to fail. On the morning of August 1st, 1980, the laughter stopped. Strother Martin died suddenly of a massive heart attack in California at the age of 61. His death shocked his colleagues and fans, cutting short the career of a man who was arguably doing his best work in his later years. He was buried at Los Robles Regional Medical Center, remembered as a supporting actor who gave leading man dedication to every line he spoke, a talent who gave his all but never truly found the time to rest.